She's going there again. I gotta stop this.
Where's your mind today, Garvin? For goodness sake, what's going on?
Don't be telling me it's not me. Danielle has a foul mouth now. She's a lover, not a fighter.
It's the mind that interprets it and receives it.
In the room, 52 Jokers Wild.
Raw and unfiltered.
Raw and unfiltered.
Oh,
that's
yeah,
the way it goes. Raw
Eddie Murphy, eat your heart out. I'm going raw. You're going unfiltered, Daniel.
Just for the audience's sake, we've just been having a wonderful conversation. We have no intro at all today. I'm just going to very quickly say that this is Danielle Serpico. She's the CEO and founder of the Black Belt Mastermind Academy. And I was just talking about the fact that I am about to hopefully get accepted as an Irish citizen, but I just thought I should reject myself, and everybody else on the show has just agreed because I don't have the Irish humour, unfortunately. We've got this British...
George, you're getting your green, white and orange belt. It's great.
I know. I will. I'll get those. And then and hopefully the accent will evolve. I've been here 35 years, and hopefully the accent will evolve over the next few years to make me feel really at home.
Next few years, as soon as you get that, you're going to be going, be Jesus and be Gora, left, right, and centre. You'll be a Michael Flatley on steroids. You'll be drinking.
I've already got the violin the fiddle going. Fiddle. Already started to play the Irish music, so I'm doing all right with that one. But that's me, and I shouldn't be talking about
I'm not going to start Irish dancing anytime soon, trying to kick me back in my ear.
I know. And when we came on the show, as soon as Daniel came on, basically what happened was Garvin started to insult her, and I went, no, we can't do that. No, we want her to feel happy enough. And she said, doesn't really matter, George, I'll beat you all up anyway. So there's our introduction.
There you go.
And most of the show will never be about anything about that. It will be all these kind of wild things that start to happen as we go along. And you've got all these lovely books behind you at the moment. So you seem very academic and very kind of educated.
You seem very intellectual, and with the universe behind you.
Oh, that's right. You can see the universe. Nobody else can, because we've got a green screen behind me. So I'll have to pop the universe up so that everybody. Maybe that's my background for this week. Is the universe? Garvin, what background would you like?
None of that. Danielle. I'm actually realizing, because of who you are, in the sense of you're actually kick-ass too, wherever it is. You can kick-ass. I like the film Kick-Ass. And you mentioned to me just before we started, I can kick your ass. I'm Kick-Ass. And so no, I don't know. Actually, I think it's Hit Girl is the girl in that particular movie, but we'll go with Kick-Ass for a second. And if I did a little bit of karate as a kid, and they gave me a little bit of a book, and you had to sort of get your little stickers in as to which belt you had and what Dan, and I didn't get to Dan anything. I was junior something. But you nearly had to tell people beforehand. It's like you went out to the pub, you went out to the club, you walked down the street. I'd be taking out this little card and flashing it at people going, I have to warn you in advance, if you give me any grief, I'm going to kick your ass. And I'm not assured, unless I say I'm a dangerous weapon. Right, are you a dangerous weapon?
I'm most certainly a dangerous weapon. It's an unfortunate situation because, I get you that in a way you kind of have to say that to protect yourself, in the sense of, because if something happens, technically you're more at risk of getting into trouble because of the fact that you are considered a dangerous weapon if you're a black belt. However, alerting people that you're a black belt is also kind of a bit of a red flag for trouble. It's going to attract trouble because people will, so on a practical basis, from that sense, I wouldn't be recommending it, because you'll just bring trouble to yourself,
So your superhero name on the back of your red lycra knickers and whatever you have is Trouble. Trouble on the back, kick ass on the front, and you're going, beware. So everybody beware. So that's what's going on. You're a woman. You're a formidable woman. Actually, we're going to say the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So you don't want you as an enemy. So we'll take you as a friend.
And remember, I am half Italian, So, when you're in the family, you don't mess with the family, yeah?
And that's how you get away with it. And actually, given the week in question, you're doing a Joey. You're going, hey, You know, don't mess with me. You say.
Well, most of my
that's enough.
Yeah, I discovered recently that one of my cousin's daughter is also an amateur, either kickboxer or mixed martial arts champion as well over in Northampton. Yeah, and a lot of my other cousins who had to be careful, all women, would you believe, or had to be careful of them because they were all into other martial arts.
He has included me in that sentence.
Oh, it's absolutely desperate because you kind of went, oh, I'm going to have to stay away from you guys. You can beat me up.
Power. Yeah,
power. Absolutely desperate.
I mean, I believe everybody really, you know, and you know, women and men, everybody really has, or definitely should, you know, consider learning some self-defense because, you know, it's a good thing to do. And even besides I mean, I'm not a fighter. I'm a lover, not a fighter. However,
she's opened up a whole can of worms on that one. I'm chomping at the bit to get back in now. Yes.
But I do believe that we all kind of, it helps in so many ways. You know what I mean? I mean, martial arts and all of that, and you know, having that. It's so much more than obviously from the protective physical aspect. It gives you so much more. So everybody could do with some martial arts training.
Well, I know George, when I first came to
before
Belfast,
I forget, George, you gotta call this episode. Sorry, I'm a lover, not a fighter. Because
I'm a lover, not a fighter. Well, actually, my next little bit of story then will actually comply with that because, and I've said actually, goodness knows how many times in that sentence, which we try to cut out. After my first son was born in Norwich, which he hated me for because he wanted to be Irish like the rest of you, and has hated me ever since. No, he hasn't. I came back and I worked with a group of people in West Belfast, and a lot of the kids were kind of going, "Oh, we can do all this sort of stuff, George. You know, what can you do?" And I said to them, "Well, actually, you've just shown me exactly what you can do. You have no idea what I can do." And they went, "Ooh. Okay, right, now we better stop because we have no idea what George can do because he hasn't shown us." And that I found was a great defense.
It is, absolutely. I think that's a great point. That's why you don't really want to alert people of what you have, you know, up your sleeve.
She's going there again. I gotta stop this.
Where's your mind today, Garvin? For goodness sake, what's going on?
It's not me. Danielle has a foul mouth now. She's a lover, not a fighter.
It's the mind that interprets it and receives
people left,
it.
right, and centre a little card of beware, I'm Italian.
I'm Italian. We're passionate people.
We'll have to start talking about spaghetti then and stuff like that. Because, you know,
I'm remembering as a kid in the local disco, and I think I was 14, 15 years of age, and I started karate. I was probably about 3.5 lessons in, but I was 6'6" at 13 or 14, and so therefore long and gangly with 3 lessons on how to kick properly or not. More than likely, I thought I could kick properly. I'm probably going to mix swimming with actually karate and go, I'm doing butterfly kicks or something. I don't know. But I was doing...
Sorry, was that women or swimming?
Swimming. Oh, but actually,
it was... I thought it was women.
I'm mixing swimming with the women in the disco dancing. So I was at this night, it wasn't a nightclub, it was a kiddies disco. And a bunch of the local how are you lads, because I hung out with the girls, the women. I was one of the girls. I always was. I couldn't talk sport. I was one of the girls. So all my friends were girls, but all the guys that got to know me to get to know the girls I knew. That was the sort of, I was the doorway into the access denied. It was what was going on. I was a kick-ass for the girls because I was tall and kept the ruffians away, unless they wanted to, sort of let them approach. But I always got picked on because I was tall and I hung out with girls. And if they got the rejection, I think if they got the rejection from the girls, they took it out on me. So I always found myself in the middle of this big, huge circle that wasn't there 4.5 seconds ago, that you were suddenly in an instamatic ring and there's a lot of people cheering you on, and someone is trying to kick the holy bejesus out of you. And now, but I was 3 lessons into karate at this stage. They didn't know what to contend with. And I started doing all these fancy moves. Now, admittedly, I think the guy was about 17 feet away from me. I was doing these moves over the other side. I was doing back flips. I was doing roundhouses. I wasn't doing them in any particular order. I just was trying to remember, you do this, you do that. And if I do this, I'm sweeping 15 foot of air with about 4.5 stone a leg. If they come anywhere near me, they're going to fly across the room. But I think it's like every karate film out there. It's dangerous not to know it and think you know it. And you start doing half moves. That was me. I was doing my half karate moves, but because I was tall, I was dangerous. And it's what I hit you with by accident, not on purpose, is what you had to avoid. So I did learn it afterwards, but I just remembered, you need to know it. It was actually about, nearly in my case, getting rid of the asthma, giving yourself self-confidence. And the last thing, actually, when you learn the whole sport, you suddenly realize we're saying, if you're aware of what's going on, run. Your whole job is not to engage. It's only as a last option.
Exactly. You're totally right. And it's funny because a little knowledge it can be dangerous, actually.
Yes.
Oh, I'm dangerous with a little knowledge.
We see that little knowledge. I remember we took up Taekwondo when we were in Belfast. I forget which, it was around about 1987. And again, 3 or 4 lessons into learning it, I happened to be on a bus that was hijacked. And we were all ordered off. And you kind of went, that looks like a plastic gun. That looks silly. You know, you could use the bit of the and I went, no, just put that aside. You don't know enough. That's dangerous. You could end up dead because it probably is a real gun. And you need to just get off. And I actually, because of the experience, I decide, do you know what? I'm not going to play around with that tool. I will use another method, which doesn't require any kind of violence or any of that. Using, if you like, psychology to get myself out of a lot of these kind of issues. And so far it's done me quite well, because I think I'm more of a pacifist than anything else. Yeah. And it has kept me well, you know.
Now, I'm remembering something quickly. I'm going to bring you back in a second, Danielle, because he's had to reminding me that you're also something else. I think you might be a hypnotist. Now, I'm remembering some other TV comedy program going, look around the eyes, not into the eyes, around the eyes. So you don't even have to use your karate or your martial arts.
I think that's the reason why he keeps going off on these very strange, funny things.
To hand his purse over to you. That's why I think you should have a double warning on you, I think.
That's the way to do it, yeah. And I mean, I think that's there's so many, we were talking about it before and we had a bit of a chat, but there's so many correlations between being a martial artist and being a hypnotist, and influence and persuasion. There's so many similarities across the board. So, I was a black belt. I had learned and I had taught people how to defend themselves physically. And then I kind of just, easily slotted into and kind of slided into the realms of helping people to protect themselves mentally as well. So it kind of, it just happened naturally.
I'm reminded of the Karate Kid 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 and 7. I don't know how many of them are anymore. And it's Mr. Miyagi. Here we have Mrs. Miyagi. I don't know what, it's wash on, wash off. I don't know whether you have any children, but I can imagine your household, the husband, the kids are washing on and washing off all over the place.
I wish. That would be good. But it's much easier to hypnotize, mesmerize, and otherwise people that aren't, the closest people to you. So you have to work a different way, very covertly.
So I know indirectly what she's doing is I don't smoke. I'm going to leave here. I'll be smoking Cuban cigars by the end of the conversation. I wonder what's going on.
Exactly.
Well, there's an interesting thing then. Do people have to be susceptible to hypnotism, or can you hypnotize anybody?
Everybody is hypnotizable. Everyone is hypnotizable because everybody is suggestible. Everyone is suggestible. So if you can learn, and if you have learned anything in your life ever how to tie your shoelaces, how to walk, how to anything at all, then it means that you are suggestible. So if you are suggestible, then you are hypnotizable, because that's all it is. It's literally suggestion, the power of suggestion.
I don't know if the name, again, because we had a 5-minute conversation about a week ago, I don't know what I know. I don't even actually know if it was you. It could have been some other woman altogether, and I'm just mixing and matching conversations. But I think it's, did you mention Paul McKenna anywhere along the way, or is it some other hypnotist? Because
Paul McKenna is. I've done a lot of training with Paul McKenna because he was my first influence to get into all of this. When we won't go through the whole saga, but when 12 years ago in 2009, my life kind of totally changed to direction, and I went from being a restaurateur to kind of getting into all of this stuff. And I came across a book by Paul McKenna and I read it, and it helped me a lot, and I liked it. I liked the practicality of it. It made sense to me, and then I started to do it. That was always my forte. Was I may not have been as academic as the rest of my family, but I was the doer in the family. So when I kind of read something or heard something, I would put it to action straight away and see if it worked. So I put it to action and it worked. And so I read all of Paul McKenna's books. And then I started to, because that's how my mind works, I kind of started to wonder, well, what is it he's studying? What is it he learned? So I wanted to find out who he'd been trained by. So I discovered he'd been trained by a guy called Richard Bandler, who you probably know, and I'm sure you know.
I know nothing.
Is the co-founder of a system called NLP, which stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming, which basically simply means how we program ourselves, how we influence ourselves with the language that we use internally, how we speak to ourselves, and the language that we use externally, how we speak to others, and the effect that has, good or bad, effective or not. And I really liked that. So I started reading Richard Bandler's books, and basically I ended up going over and studying with Richard Bandler, and Paul McKenna was at a lot of the trainings because he's one of his top students. So he was kind of assisting him. So I did a lot of training all the way up. And originally it was just for me, and then it became my business. So that's the kind of the
Now,
short
I'm
version
also
of it.
remembering, so again, you said last week you might go back to the restaurant business. I think you went off, armed yourself to the teeth. Now you're going back to the restaurant business, and you're going to be at each table going, you don't want the white wine, you want the whiskey. You don't want the whiskey, you want the craft 40-year-old whiskey, 200 quid a bottle. Yes, you do, 2 glasses. And then on to the next table. So you do want dessert. Don't be giving me that at all. So order 2. Bring 1 home for the dog. It's so I can see why you're getting back into the business. Now, I remember Paul McKenna because I only had one interaction with him when I was a student in the College of Commerce back in 1989 or something like that. So I think he's been around. He probably was in his short pants then. I don't know how old he is. But he was definitely then, and he was given the college hypnotizing Freshers Week show. Yeah. And I was with my buddy, and my buddy was a man's man, a lad about town, a lad's lad. And as I said, he was not susceptible, so he thought. And he was there going, I'm going to go along front row, and I'm going to give him a bit of grief. I'm going to be the heckler. And he was. But by God, was he entertaining on stage afterwards. Because when he got up there, this is exactly what Paul wanted, because he was the most malleable, he was the most pliable. This guy was chasing, I think, 3'4" Arnold Schwarzenegger leprechauns, naked leprechauns, for about a week afterwards. He had flashbacks for 10 years. He hasn't recovered to this day. He says one of the best. He couldn't tell that. He says he sort of realized. He knew it was strange and it was questionable that there was a naked leprechaun in front of him that looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but it seemed reasonable at the time. And he had a job to do to catch him and bring him back and bring him back to the show. So, but it was a great show. Really enjoyed it. That's the only place I heard about Paul McKenna. I knew he's a hypnotist until you mentioned it 30 years later. But now I'm going, I hope to God by the end of this show I'm not chasing sort of 4'6"
I'm actually.
leprechauns.
You never know.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing there is that we're creative, and you've mentioned you've written a book, you've written a novel, and I know I've written a couple of novels, and when you're writing, when you're getting into that kind of writing process, you suddenly experience, literally in your mind, the environment that you're writing about, and the characters that you're going through as you try to develop what do they want and what's stopping them from getting it and how are they going to get through this next scene. And you were talking about a leprechaun there, and I was seeing a little leprechaun, not really, but actually your imagination can create
She's
this little
hypnotised on George. She's already at it.
We're already
She's
there.
winking that eye every 5 minutes. She thinks I don't notice.
Well, I've got several little, watches, little sort of. I should have brought them on because I've got my little watch that you could actually just hit. I don't think it works that way, but I think it's an interesting kind of concept because what you're tapping into, because I'm thinking about the psychology of how we would teach someone to learn. Now, from my perspective, I'm not using the neuro-linguistic programming, but I'm actually aware of the cognitive thing. No,
she's saying, George, you're definitely not using that. Trust me.
No,
knows.
definitely.
But we've got the acronym. We've got the 3 letters. That's about as close as we're going to get to.
Well, I only learnt it last week. But the thing is that one of the things I had looked at was the fact that it uses it looks at the Gestalt kind of psychology, which I tend to use a little bit, which means I'm not, because I've mentioned it, that being Gestalt is looking at the whole picture. The other thing is that we're constructivists and as a filmmaker who constructs a story and lays it out and looking at frameworks, we're looking at how we build upon the experience that someone has before and then starts to help look at where the blind spots are, because I'm also looking at counseling at the moment, and how you then help them, challenge them to nurture them in a slightly different direction. So it is a lot of what people are doing using different formats are to try and help to literally do that, find out where the blind spots in the story that someone's actually telling and help them to move in a certain direction so they can get them out of that kind of same sort of situation. And I think, explain neuro-linguistic programming. George, I'm not letting you go there. Yeah.
No, sorry. This is not an NLP program.
No. I think this is important, just in a few moments, to explain that kind of process. Because
go on.
You were talking.
That's going to be on every single show out there. I'm an NLP practitioner.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
This is what it is.
I think as part of the, because you've talked about the things that you were doing in the past there, sort of, Garvin. So I think it is important just to connect to that kind of sense, just very briefly, because then we'll move on to aliens in a short time, I'm sure, and we'll get that part going. Yeah. But just briefly, just to give us a kind of concept there.
Yeah.
You've got 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6.
No,
5, 4.
Stop it. She'll hypnotise you and make you think that you're a little fairy in a second or two, and you'll flutter away somewhere off into the background.
I know I am. Yes, there's no thinking involved there. That's a given. Go on, sorry.
And we're talking about the 19th century concept of a fairy, nothing else, okay? Just in case the audience picks up wrong and thinks we're talking about something else. Sorry.
The difference between what I do and what a lot of NLP practitioners say they do, as Garvin just said, another NLP practitioner. I'm not an NLP practitioner. First of all,
she's a kick-ass black belt mastermind.
Exactly.
That's it.
I teach my own system, the mastermind method, which is, and as we had a bit of a chat before, is the concept of everything that I've learned so far, which includes, if we want to label it NLP. If we want to label it NLP, because remember, NLP was just a label that Richard Bandler and John Grinder, the creators of it, gave it. Now, they didn't actually create it. It was already there. So a lot of NLP practitioners, because obviously different levels, so a lot of people say they're NLP practitioners, but what they've done is they've just done one course. And they've done, a few days training, and they even think, as we're saying, a little knowledge can be dangerous.
You're doing that course, actually, yep.
Yeah, they think, well, do my course, obviously.
Yeah, as a free one, thank you very much. We'll take that coupon. Discount,
I have a free one starting next week. Yeah, I have a free course starting next week. But people will do a free course, or they'll do even a 1 week long course, and they think that they're experts in a subject. Yeah. And we all know that it doesn't work that way. My favorite saying is, it's oh so right to be wrong. Because every time that you prove yourself wrong, you've, those biases, those blind spots, you've expanded your map. So the way I see NLP is very simply, it's a universal method. They are universal principles that have always been there. And it is how to influence somebody in the most beneficial way, either yourself or somebody else in the most effective way. Now, a lot of NLP practitioners, what they'll do is, and hypnotists, by the way, they'll learn scripts. They will learn techniques. and they, in my humble opinion, they haven't got a clue what they're doing, because all they're doing is, you'd say,
regurgitating.
Yeah.
they're
yeah.
regurgitating.
Yeah.
They've learned.
I've got a spot.
instead of-
The sun is shining. Sorry about this, but the sun is starting to. And George, don't give out to me. It's starting.
Oh,
to come
I
on
will.
here.
Garvin,
It's starting
goodness
to shine
gracious, that
here.
green screen, if it doesn't work,
I'm
it's
going to get up. You leave you two to it and close the window.
I
Go
can't
on.
see this,
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
It gives a few moments.
What they will do is they will learn a script or a technique, and they think they understand it, but all they've been doing is they've been given the fish, they haven't been taught how to fish.
Yes.
So I like to do it the opposite way around. I like to teach people, show people the principles, and then they can make up their own scripts. They can use their own methods once they understand the principles. Because in my opinion, again, all the modalities have the same principles. It's just we've labeled them for marketing purposes. So
And I think that
is NLP is hypnosis, etc., etc.
Well, I know that. I mean, I've studied education. I've taught people how to learn how to do stuff, and it's not the teaching. You don't want to be teaching. If you're teaching, it's wrong. It's all about the learning. It's how people learn, and you become sort of person centered, and your focus. And I was talking to someone the other day. I was
George,
driving up
I'm
to
going to
the
stop
pictures.
for a second and go. I'm what? You're the educationist.
I'm the educationist. Yeah.
I don't know how many subjects, right? He's got a master's in this, that, the other. He keeps on telling me. That's the great thing about it. So I know he's read a lot of books, and he's actually mastered them all, and he got the sticker to say he is qualified.
No.
No, that's fine. I'm the opposite. I'm the one you're talking about. I went and read the introduction chapter to about 25 books.
Yes.
I read the summary at the end, and I actually memorized a couple of acronyms, and I chuck them all in together, and I go, right, I know enough. That's me. Enough to bamboozle, but if you go deep, I'm in trouble. I can go wide. But you then said about centered. You're saying, I don't know what the word was.
Person-centered. We were talking about person-centered,
right.
where we're
That's
actually focusing on the individual.
I'm
now, the problem is that as we go further and further into this conversation, that is definitely so the focus is.
There you go. So I'm a self-centered synopsis reader, practice preacher. And go wide and not deep. George is actually what you need to be talking to.
But the interesting thing is that Garvin is learning, because what's interesting
not
about
to shut up long enough to let you have a word, but I mean soon enough.
No. But the thing that what I'm finding is fascinating is over the last year or so, and a lot of these processes take time, and they also need people to slow down. And not to be constantly trying to race to get somewhere, because it is a case of gradually building, taking small steps, small chunks, and really trying to get to know what was going on. I got into a little bit of trouble with Garvin yesterday because I kept going sort of, you're an unconscious incompetent. Threw my hand at the screen. Didn't mean to be doing that.
Every word was uncompetent, subconscious, uncompetent. You know,
so I rephrased it.
Oh, there you go. I don't even think it's incompetent. So
it is. There is an incompetence there, but basically what it was
I'm
that
definitely bolting and put together. But I know that much. But
no.
Now, George, I'm going to swing it back because I want to go superhero here because Danielle is my superhero. She, as I said, she's kick-ass.
He's idolizing you. That's
and
something
she's
else that we need.
That other hypno guy, kick-ass hypno. So we're going, that's 2 superpowers you got so far. You probably have a bunch of others in your handbag. But I mean, it's the rest of us. I got tall. I've got tall cornered. That's about all I've got cornered at the moment in terms of my superpower. But you've got 2 superpowers. Are you going to use them on the next Kickstarter, Dragon's Den, to raise some funds for your business? That's what I want to know.
For my new cafe, there's an idea there.
Yeah.
I have an idea for a cafe. Yeah, absolutely. So you never know. Maybe I'll go to Dragon's Den, and hypnotize them to.
But that's it. We're back to you have a superpower. Have you been using it or abusing it?
I abuse it in the best possible way. I abuse it for my gains, but it also simultaneously helps others. So, I mean, it's funny because like this year with lockdown, a lot of businesses have suffered. My business has boomed, and it's been great because everybody wants to get back into learning and developing. And so it's been a great boost, so my business quadrupled.
Oh, wow.
Over.
Look into my eyes, not around my eyes.
Yeah.
It's €400 an hour, not €100 an hour.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have a lot of my minions coming out here now into the world. So there's a lot of mini me's. It's kind of like it's
They're
spreading.
all hypnotized. They don't realize it. They're going off there doing pyramid selling for you.
No, we're doing good. We're changing lives and helping people feel better. So I suppose that's the superpower, isn't it?
That's it.
Helping people in the process.
We talked to we've talked a number of times with different people about this great reset, and I do think that we are going through a great reset in ourselves. We have to. Obviously, a lot of what we were doing before isn't going to work anymore, and we have to think of a new way of working to interact with others and to open up doors and possibilities. I know that through the pandemic, we've had an opportunity to talk to more people than we ever did before. And before the pandemic, you would have gone out and you would have tried to find a way to link in with people. And it wasn't, I don't think it was as easy as it seems to be now. But the internet has actually given us that opportunity to open doors. Is that what you've been finding yourself? Have you been?
Well, absolutely. I mean, all my business was offline. And I would have been a year and a half, I would say, so right to be wrong. I'm delighted I was wrong, because I would have said a year and a half ago, I would have said, there's no way I could do NLP trainings. No way I could teach people hypnosis or do sessions online. Has to be live, has to be face-to-face in person. And very quickly I had to reevaluate and say, oh, whoops, I got to do something here. Because, when everything closed down, I just finished a 7-day training live. It was in March, whatever it was, 2020. And the next day, the 2 days later, I think
it was on my birthday, believe it or not, 13th.
Yeah,
March the 13th.
Yeah.
My present to me in 2020 was, here you go. Here's something you didn't have before: a global pandemic. You go off and see how you do with that one.
Great present. So I had to reevaluate very quickly what I was doing, because everything had been in person. I had to cancel loads of talks, lots of workshops, lots of trainings, et cetera, et cetera. So I said, okay, I've got to give this a go. And thankfully, not only did it work, but it actually proved to work well. So there is a lot of benefits of doing online. People feel more comfortable in their own home. There's more availability for people to explore something that they didn't explore before, because they don't have to travel, they don't have expenses, So it actually worked out really, really well. So thankfully, now I have noticed now lately, people are chomping at the bit to get back out again. So I'm going back to the lives now. Now it's time to we've had enough of it to an extent. Yeah. To an extent, we want to get back out. So it'll be a mixture. I think Zoom and all of this is here to stay a lot more now, a lot more. But obviously it'll be a mixture of we were saying that.
Yeah, we were saying there's I think we believe there is a higher value, lower volume in the room experience to be had, that want to be closer to the people, to get that, you nearly feel the energy. Yeah, I'm sure you can feel it through the structures.
Well, I feel it. I mean, I have a big community now, and they're all kind of like, okay, we want to get together, we want to see each other in person. So
we'll help you out with that. We've got a place.
Oh yeah.
I'll give you a discount. You give me a coupon, I'll give you a coupon.
Yeah. Come to Italy with me. I have a great event coming up, an NLP course in 2022. In
my wife will rip your arm off. I'm not even going to tell her that. I know she's not going to know, because she won't listen to the shows anyway. So now, here's one for you, Lorraine. If you listen to this show, you've just been invited to Italy by Danielle Serpico. You enter one of her ones here before. But I know you don't listen. You've got to get through 83 of them to get to here. So if you get here, we'll go to Italy with Danielle. But
there you go.
I'm not telling you directly.
To listen to them.
Well, do you find the interaction?
Sorry, I just want a bit more information there. How many people would go to that close proximity type, be in the room with Danielle?
Well, I mean, I do different live events. So I have a boot camp, a black belt mastermind boot camp day, which
that's the kick-ass one. Kick-ass with the boot. Yep, got that one. Yeah.
That's the kick-ass day. Now, normally I would kind of have, it's a fairly closed event. I mean, I give talks for 50, 100, whatever, 200 people, but the workshops would be more, maybe about 20, 25 would probably be my maximum limit. You know, because it's more of an intimate event.
That's still a crowd. We want.
It is quite.
If you
it's quite a bit,
25 is intimate, I don't even want to know that, Joey.
Well, I know the difference is that when in the classroom, 25 was a bit more
that's still
harder to work with than 16.
Well, compared
16,
to like most NLP courses, like Richard Bandler's NLP course that I was on, in you know, many times was what was it, 3,000 in the room or something like that. Yeah. So you know, it's for 20, 25 people is intimate for me. Yeah. Yeah.
That was pretty. No, what I was about to ask there was the interaction with people. How do you experience the difference between what they're doing online, where you're a flat screen, if you like, to the fact that you're in the room with them? Do they operate differently with you?
Totally. I mean, it is immediately there is a difference. I mean, it has worked well, and I think people were so eager to do it, and you know, we needed that connection. So the internet gave us that. Thank God for that. It gave us that ability to be able to do that. So we managed. However, on a communication level, and without getting all into the technicalities, you've probably heard that we communicate in different ways. And in psychological and hypnosis and NLP terms, we call this, like, we use visual communication, we use auditory communication, and we use kinesthetic communication, which is we speak through our feelings, through our movement, etc., as well.
That's why I'm usually gesticulating all over the shop, and people don't get me unless they're in the room.
You're very kinesthetic. Yeah. So what happens is when we're live, you've got that extra element of touch, of proximity, of movement, of that feeling. So it's like a slightly higher level. Yes. I mean, there is a difference. There is a difference. Plus, I think from having done so much online for the past, 16 months or whatever it is, I've noticed there's only so much of an attention span online. You can't do an 8 hour a day NLP training online, which I haven't been doing. They've been shorter NLP trainings, shorter courses with maybe a couple of hours a day, but that's about the max 2 or 3 hours split up over the day. But 8 hours intensive, you can only do if you're doing live. It won't.
Yeah,
work.
the other thing is that I don't know about you, but there is a spiritual element that goes out of you when you're with a group of people like that. And what we found, again, in the teaching area is that you could only do 5 hours. If you did 6 hours, you were physically shattered, and you had to rebuild those energy levels. Now, I'm not trying to talk in a spiritual sense, but I did notice that as a lecturer, that if I was doing 6 hour days teaching, that I came home, literally crawled across the door frame and fell asleep for a good hour or two because that energy was going out. So I'm sure you'd find the same thing.
Well, if we're going into that realm, okay. And I'm very practical. Practical. But what I realized when I learned all of this, and when I started, the more I learn every day, the more I realize how much I don't know, right? Which is great, which is wonderful. And the more I tap into something, and I know this sounds maybe a bit hocus pocus, but something bigger than me, bigger than all of us, something that I can't explain.
Yeah, taller. I'm taller than you. Yep, that's bigger.
Yeah, exactly. And what happens is every single NLP course that I've done is about 8-9 hours a day. Right, 7 days straight. And people say to me, "My God, how do you do it? Where do you get the energy from?" And I get a lot of people. I get counselors, coaches, psychiatrists, doctors, therapists coming to me every day to learn NLP. And they all ask me the same questions: is where do you get the energy from? How come you're not depleted? How come you're not depleted and lacking in energy? So there's
and our sponsors are Red Bull. And there's one for everyone in the audience.
Coffee, Italian coffee.
Yeah.
No, well, I have two answers. The first answer, the very quick answer, is that what happens is, if you're focused, and because I teach people, I help people a lot with this. A lot of coaches that are burnt out, and counselors and therapists exhausted and depleted, and said, how do you protect
There's a common
yourself from
denominator here that all of
energy?
these people are all the same people and they're all burnt out. None of their patients are burnt out. They're burnt out.
Yeah, well, it happens because what they're doing is they're letting in the energy, the negative energy. And if you're and I give this example often, that like if your vessel is full,
Half full.
if your vessel is full, then you can give out without feeling tired. If you know how to refill that vessel continuously. If you don't know how to refill the vessel continuously, then you're going to start getting exhausted, depleted, negative, angry, bitter. That's why people, we see people who are, maybe angry, resentful, bitter, older people who think the world, woe me. And
stop talking about me like that. Well, for God's sake, I mean, it's our show. You've done nothing but insult us since you got on.
You were the one that started it, but I think this is important stuff because a lot of people have these problems, and it comes out in this show quite a bit.
Exactly. So we've got to know how to refill our own cup. That's really, really important. And one of the very simply, because this works with public speaking, we get people who are afraid of public speaking. Very simply, if you're doing one thing, you can't be doing another thing at the same time. So if you're focused as a coach, as a therapist, as a trainer, as a teacher, as a friend, as whatever it is, as a salesperson, anything on that other person, then if you're focused on them, then you can't be in yourself at the same moment. Yeah. So when you're not in yourself and you're focused on them, your attention is going outwards, you're not going to get depleted. It's only when you start going in internally and you're not with the person, you're not present and focused on that person, that you're going to start getting depleted. So that's the number one rule. It's the same with public speaking. If you're focused on your audience, not going back into yourself, what are they thinking about me? What are they thinking about me? What are they thinking about me? If I'm going back into myself and thinking, what are they thinking about me? Then I can start getting afraid. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but if you're focused on the other people, how am I going to help them? How am I going to help them? How am I going to help them? Then it's impossible for you to feel fear at the same time. So that's one key element for public speaking, for people with fear, for people who want to be less depleted if they're working with people, et cetera, et cetera. But it also goes into what you're saying about spirituality. How do I do 7 days straight? Now, one of the rules with hypnosis, one of the basic principles of hypnosis, NLP, which is the same thing, neuro-linguistic programming, is the exact same thing as hypnosis, just another label, right? Is that we want to, as effective communicators, and when I say effective communicators, I mean you and I, both of us, the three of us.
You and George, talking about you now. Say Garvin is the example of the ineffective communicator. George is the example of the effective communicator. So we have now people understand what the difference is.
Absolutely.
So to be an effective communicator, and what I mean by effective is we've heard the quotes like, the single biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it's taking place, right? Most of us think we're communicating, but we're not. We're kind of going, no, and we're not actually connecting, right? So there's no effectiveness, right? So to be effective, one of the key rules, the key rule is to bypass the conscious mind. To bypass the conscious mind. So you get into the subconscious, because the conscious mind is just that critical, analytical mind that thinks and knows it all and really doesn't know anything. Okay? We want to get into the subconscious.
Why does she keep on looking at me when she's saying this and then looks at you when she's saying the good things? Yeah.
No, actually, hang on a second. Garvin, that's your inner self sort of criticize. You need to put that to sleep at this point.
No, I'm watching her. I'm watching her.
Danielle.
She's looking at you when all the positive stuff comes out, and she's looking at me when she's saying, you think you're communicating, do you now? And you think communication's happening.
Maybe that's the beauty of the fact I don't have your image available to me to look at. I only have Danielle, so it's just I'm having.
I'm watching her, George. You're getting all the kudos. I'm getting all the kick-ass. So I don't know what's going on here.
Okay, let's get back to it.
So what happens is when so when I do an NLP course, and where you're saying you get tired, what I would say is that's actually probably the most effective time, because when you get tired, and that's why an NLP training is designed that way, 7 days long, 8 hours a day minimum, so that the person is actually, the intellectual conscious mind is getting tired. So what happens is normally day 1, day 2, the person is kind of feeling sometimes even a bit frustrated. Day one, they're all fresh and as a daisy, and they're all feeling good, and they think they're taking this all in a certain manner. Day two, day three, they're starting to kind of get a bit tired, and I'll get people coming up to me on day three saying, I don't know if I'm getting this, Danielle. I don't know if I'm getting this. I don't know, because one of the things that we learn, and we learn in an NLP course, is not to write things down. So that's
Oh, geez, I'm halfway there then. I don't even have a pen.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop you for a second. I think I told George this before, and I might have said it in the show, because I've got a business background like yourself, and as an accountant, I learned never bring a pen and paper to any meeting, because if you end up writing anything down, you're carrying work away. The game is, it's not mine, it's someone else's. I'll be there, I'll contribute, but I've no pen and paper, I'm not bringing any work home.
Well, you see, that's a different reason, right? Very clever reason, but different reason. So the reason why I suggest for you to not be writing something down during an NLP course, and this obviously breaks every intellectual academic rule, because anyone who's done courses before thinks, right, take notes and study them. But remember, that's all intellectual. So what happens is when you're writing something down, if I'm a hypnotist, right, and I want to effect change on you, okay, I want you present with me.
I'm closing my eyes. I'm not looking into her eyes or around her eyes. I know she's up to something.
If you're writing something down, where are you?
Yeah.
Your eyes are down.
Yeah, you're down,
you're in the past. You're actually in the past. You're not with me in the present, because you're writing something down. What did she say? What did she just say there? And you're scribbling away, and I'm still talking about the next bit, and you're trying to play catch up the whole time. So you're constantly in the past, and you're not in the present. And if you're not in the present, then how can you be influenced? Does that make
Danielle,
sense?
have you not noticed anything in this show yet? I know you've listened to none of the ones before. George might be in the past. I'm actually in the future. I am actually preempting what you're going to say next and trying to beat you to it. I'm not in the past. Yeah. I'm going, this is the next word Danielle's asked. I'm going to say it for her. I'm jumping in so I can get back in again. That's what I do. I'm one of those ignorant so-and-sos that wants I'll finish her sentence for her so I can talk again. That's what I'd like to do.
But one of the great
NLP course.
one of the great things.
I'm a case study. I am every case study you dreamt to show your guests and your course participants. You're going, this is what not to do, right? On steroids, and this is not put on, by the way. No, there's no actors were injured in the making of this course.
Except for George.
I'm going to finish my last.
Do finish that. Yeah.
Story. The final bit is so when you're tired, what happens is after a few days, the person's getting tired. Then what happens is eventually, maybe day about 3 or 4, they go, you know what, feck this, am I allowed to, sorry, they say, you know what, that's it, I give up. I'm stopping trying so hard to think, to remember, and trying, because trying implies failure to the subconscious mind, right? Okay, so we're trying so hard to learn, to understand, to remember, and we give up. Eventually we give up and we say, you know what, I'm just gonna enjoy myself. And that's what I say when people come to me and say, I don't know if I'm taking all this in. I say, doesn't matter, just relax, just have fun, just enjoy it. And eventually they switch off. That's when the learning starts, because we know, and any good teacher will know this, that for somebody to learn, there's key things that the subconscious mind loves, and we love fun.
Yep.
We love what's easy. No. We love what's easy. We love stories. Okay, we love excitement. They're the things we love. So we don't, when we're watching a film, we don't sit down and write everything down to remember the film. We remember it because we enjoyed it. We were open, we were relaxed. We get our popcorn out. We're not taking our notebook out to remember everything that we learned in the film. I have to try to remember it so hard. We say, you know what, I'm going to switch off for an hour and a half now. I want downtime. I want a no-brainer. I don't want to think. I just want to watch a film and be entertained. And how can we remember everything?
I'm going to come back for a second.
Happens.
George might even say it in one of our shows not too long ago. I don't even know when, because I can't even remember. There's so many of them now. But we don't want to know we learned. We don't want to notice we learned. We want it to be as you said, I have it down. I'm going, I am so comfortable walking in that door. I'm not even paying bloody attention to you. I'm over in the corner ordering a second cappuccino and a double chocolate muffin. You might be trying to talk to the rest of the room, and I'm enjoying myself. This is my universe. So I'm learning. She told me, go over there and enjoy yourself, do what you want, excuse me, and you'll learn. And I says, right, this is for me. If that's your setup, I'm going, turn up, sit around, have the muffins and the cappuccinos, and you won't even know you learned. And you'll come out the other side and you'll be the better for it. Although that's the sort of stuff I like.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing about film, because we talked about a movie just there, is unlike a photograph, which is similar to what you just now said about being in the past, every photograph is a moment captured sometime in the past. Every movie, regardless, like we will watch this show in the future. But when we're watching the show...
We will.
No, hang on a second,
We have
Garvin,
to watch it 10 times each, because we have to get those subscription numbers up. You won't even watch it. But
the point is, Garvin, the point is that at the point that you're watching this very moment, this interaction, you will be in the now. Every time you watch this film, at this particular point in time, you will be in that now, in this present. And I think that's what's key about a movie. A movie has a past, present, and future, but when you move the dial to wherever you want to go in that film, you're always in the present. And I think that's what...
Except that the movie's called Back to the Future 1, 2, and 3.
No, every moment in Back to the Future is in the present. Yeah. You go and watch that movie, you can never be in the past.
I'm only messing. I'm talking about the title, George. You didn't get it. I know. You're too sharp.
But I'm just putting the point across. Because it's the same thing as what you're talking about. And I know that in the past when we've had... I learned computer programming, which is interesting because it's similar to what you're talking about in programming people. But I know that there would be these moments where you're struggling to find something. It's only at the moment you give up and let go that you suddenly, the answer pops into your head. And that's the same kind of process, which I think is quite interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And on a spiritual note, that's exactly why, because whether you believe it's a spiritual thing or an energy thing or scientific thing, we know we're energy, right? Because we know from quantum physics, we're made up of energy. So I really believe, and this is where it gets the woo-woo bit, I have had really weird experiences, unusual experiences, more and more and more when I do my live trainings. And the reason why I now believe and it's happening is because my conscious mind, the same way as my students, their conscious mind is switched off. My conscious mind is switched off because I've been doing 8-9 hours a day of teaching, right? Mm-hmm. And my conscious mind also has switched off because I'm tired, right? Consciously. So my conscious mind, and I'm now just running for my subconscious, because we know we're always alive, but as long as we're alive, our subconscious is awake.
I woke up dead this morning. What are you on about?
Dead beat, maybe.
So it's then when that filter is switched off that you're exposed to more, because that's what your conscious mind acts as your filter, so that you don't go crazy.
I think that's Deepak Chopra tapping the universal conscious flow.
I'm not saying I'm enlightened or I'm some sort of a guru, but I have had moments. I've had moments.
No, you've already got 2 superhero ones now. I'm not letting you have a third now on top of that.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, the more you let your conscious mind switch off, that's when you're opening yourself up to other messages that come in.
And Carl Jung would talk about those sort of things in the dreams that he was having, and he got into writing all those dreams down and starting to explore them. And I think we have our own dreams where we're seeing that we're being influenced, and a lot of different religions indicate during the dream world is where the messages get put through to you, and you get influenced by whatever it is that's out there. And again, you've been talking about the negative and the positive. One of the things that in Christianity they talk about is that if you focus on the negative and you fight whatever it is that's negative going against you, you're actually got it all wrong. If you focus on the positive, the negative can't influence you because you've just shut it out completely. It's completely blanked out. And those ideas, I think, are quite valid in what we're trying to talk about in this book.
That's why George just switched me off. So he's got rid of the negative. He's actually turned it off altogether. He's muted me, and then he's got.
You're muted.
Well, again, it's one of the key principles of psychology, of all of these principles of human nature, because our subconscious mind knows better. It's our conscious critical mind that thinks it knows it all, but our subconscious mind knows better. And exactly what you're saying is the subconscious mind, for example, doesn't know the difference between what's real or imagined. It also doesn't know, doesn't understand, doesn't process a negative. So when we say something like, don't forget to watch our next podcast, that's the worst thing that you can say. Yeah. Because when we say don't forget, like a hypnotist is not going to say that, because what you're actually saying is to forget. Like, I'm not going to sit in front of a client and say don't forget to eat your healthy foods, or to whatever I'm hypnotizing them for, because that's going to make them forget. Right? So instead you say remember.
You're telling us that 83 shows in, George has been ending every show with don't forget. We are our own worst enemies.
Well, everybody forgets.
It's one of the things I see in advertising all the time. People put in advertising, they don't forget to check this out, don't forget to la la la. You tell your wife, don't forget to pick up the milk or whatever. And all we're doing is, that's what I mean by effective communication or not. If we're saying don't forget, then we're actually telling the person to forget. So it's the same principle as focus on what you want versus what you don't want. I get people every day that come along and say, okay, and I say, well, okay, what would you like to get from our time together? And they say, well, I don't want to think about cigarettes. I don't want to think about cigarettes. And okay. Someone else says, I don't want to think about chocolate. Someone else says, I don't want to think about my ex. And all of them, you have to kind of pull them out of it and kind of say, well, what do you want to think about? And they go, well, I don't want to be thinking about that anymore. So what do you want to think about it? And what happens is we have a part of our brain, our monitor, that looks out for danger. So when we say, I don't want to think about cigarettes, I don't want to think about my ex anymore, I don't want to think about chocolate anymore, what happens is that monitor goes into alert and is looking out for that thing because it thinks it's a threat.
Yeah. Don't forget about the white elephant in the room.
Exactly. Yeah. Or the saber-toothed tiger or whatever it is. So it's looking out for the danger. So what happens is you go into Tesco's with your shopping trolley, you're going down, you're saying, I'm not going to think about chocolate. I'm not going to think about chocolate. I'm not going to think about chocolate. Where do you end up? You end up in the niceties aisle buying the chocolate, because your monitor is going, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I've got to find the chocolate. I've got to find chocolate so I know what to stay away from. So
I just want to thank our sponsors, Cadbury's and Tesco's again, for Danielle's.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's a key principle in life and everything. We hear the sayings, you get more what you focus on, but people don't actually put it to use.
We don't know what we want. We've said this a lot of times. We know what we don't want more than we know what we want.
Yeah, but we're just going down the wrong pathway. And I spent many years focusing on what I didn't want. And when I remember, was one of the first things, it was actually in fact the thing that probably saved my life 12 years ago. I remember hearing the saying, you get more of what you focus on. And I know this might sound a bit whimsical, but as I said, I was very practical. So I kept on thinking of that quote, you get more of what you focus on, you get more of what you focus on. And I understood the psychology of it at this stage. So I said, okay, I'm going to put it to use. So what I did was, I was 12 years ago, as you know, I went bankrupt. I lost my businesses. I had 3 restaurants and a gift shop. And in the recession in 2009, I lost everything. I lost my home. I lost my car. I lost every single thing that I had. I was penniless, broke, depressed. I got divorced. My dogs had died. And I was suicidal, right? And that's where my journey started. And I remember I was bitter at that point, and angry at the world. And I thought nobody cared. And I remember when I learned this stuff, I said, okay, I'm going to put this to use, because I was very practical. And I said, I'm going to make this work. So I said, okay, what if I think everybody is, this is literally my thought pattern. I think everybody is out to get me. People don't care. People are shallow. People are selfish. So what if I start, and I know our words have power. I know that our thoughts create a neural pathway that strengthens, and the more we think it, the more the neural pathway strengthens. The stronger the neural pathway, the stronger the emotions. And I know when we speak words out loud, those neural pathways get even stronger. So, okay, I'm going to put this to use. So I went outside. It was completely selfish at the start, just for my own gains, for me to feel better. But I started to look at people and say, okay, I'm going to find the beauty in this person. And it's as corny as that sounds.
You're lucky you didn't meet me, Jen, because
there's loads of beauty in you, Garvin. There's tons of beauty in you. And I said, okay, I'm going to look for the beauty in this person. Okay. And at the start, it was difficult because I had become so angry at the world. And I thought nobody cared. I thought nobody really cares. Everyone's just out for themselves. So I said, I'm going to find the beauty. And at the start, it was difficult. So I said, okay, I'm going to look for what's vulnerable. And there's vulnerability in us all. So when I could find the vulnerability, then I could connect, because we know that we like people that are like us, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So I found a similarity because I felt vulnerable. So once I started finding that, I could start seeing the beauty. I could say, well, this person is beautiful. I'm not just talking about aesthetic beautiful. I'm talking about inside beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's what changed my life. That sentence, you get more what you focus on, started to teach me how to focus on what I do want, focus on that, and you get more of it. Because people say, oh yeah, that's all fluff. It's not fluff.
no, it's a law of attraction. Everything out there says a law of attraction. And again, the other sayings is the more you give, the more you get. And if you ask the universe, it will give. If you didn't ask, how could you expect it? Now, I'm going to throw in a little bit of imagery, because again, as I said, everyone's speaking, and depending on what mind you have, I'm seeing images. Now, you were saying, about the beauty and all that, and I started hearing, Beauty and the Beast. So there, we know who's the Beauty and the Beast in this conversation. But, and that was what I started saying. But then we know the film, and we know Beauty and the Beast, and we know you found the beauty in the Beast. But at the same time, then I was remembering a classic episode of George in Seinfeld. And I was going, every decision he made in life was wrong. That's what the episode was about. So the other character said, whatever your natural instinct is now, do the opposite. So he saw a beautiful girl at the coffee shop bar, and he says, never in a million years will I go up to her. And, because I know, because you might have her charbox, rejected this. We know, I've done it 100 times before, reject. So he went straight up and said, I'm George, how are you? I'm an unemployed accountant, living with me mammy, I'm broke, and I suffer from diabetes. And your one turned around and go, Jesus, that's great. Would you like a date? You go, it worked. So, and then every decision after that, we told the boss what he thought of him. We did, and it's like, they love the honesty. So actually, your natural, as you said, I think what's going on in Seinfeld language, you mentioned it again, was your subconscious, which is the better one, is a low talker, whereas your chitter-chatter box is a high talker. So he's louder, and you're trying to make them the opposite, because then what you'll get is what you want, whereas you're already hedging the bets against yourself if you yourself are your own worst critic.
I think there's something interesting in listening to the dialogue there as well, because one of the key things I think
Seinfeld, Jerry Seinfeld, just in case there's any copyright issues on that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, one of the interesting things there is that if you go inward and look at yourself and start chitter-chattering too much, you end up blocking yourself. But if you do what Danielle was talking about there, which was to start to look within the other person, to see what the goodness is within them, which and the strength is actually where the vulnerability comes out. And I think it's only because we're seeing champions who have basically found themselves crumbling to the floor.
Yeah.
And they've been wiped out. Everything they thought they knew had just been destroyed, decimated. And I know that from my experience of being in the college. I was a filmmaker. That part of my life changed. I then became a lecturer. And the moment I got my master's degree, and I thought, great, I can do all this stuff, it was like the whole thing was just swept away from me. I was never going to get a chance to do it in that environment. But I think what I like what you were talking about there, Danielle, about looking in and saying, and as opposed to being angry about the world and what everybody else was doing to you, because I hear that with a lot of people saying, oh, they're doing this, and they go off on this tantrum of they come out with all these different things that are going on that they imagine, and their imagination takes them on this journey, and you kind of go, but that person doesn't know that you think that of them, because they never have said that or they have done. It's just your perception. But once they can close that down and then start to look at the other person and start to, as you say, be with them, be there in the moment, be there and open up to them, because I think that's something I noticed in a counselling session that I was once before. I opened up and they didn't close me back, and I went to a lecture of 150 people and the whole thing crashed because I felt completely open and I couldn't take the stresses of what was going on from the people there. So that one-to-one type thing where you open up, you can start to see the goodness of people around you and start to accept them for who they are and not to judge. I think that judgment is the key thing. Don't judge, because you'll be judged.
Unless you're Judge
I think
Judy,
that's very important.
then you can judge. But if you're not Judge Judy, don't judge.
I think that's important. Yeah. But even Judge Judy is not judging the person, is judging the actions of things that are going on. And in many ways is counselling those people to help them move away from what they were doing, to see the blind spots of where they were going wrong. Those, I think, they're very important things that are going on. So that's actually, I felt rewarded from that whole conversation anyway.
Likewise, yeah. So I think that makes a lot of sense on what you're saying about judging. Yeah, exactly. You know, one of the things we know as coaches, as counselors, as therapists, whatever, as human beings, is that our biggest fear is being judged and not being good enough, you know? So, you know, it's
Judge Dredd. I'm reminded of Judge Dredd as well. The judge, actually, we're judge and jury. That's the weird thing. We're our own judge and jury, but we're not qualified. And we haven't got all the facts.
Yeah. And what's important is to focus on the action, the behavior versus the person, you know, to focus on what somebody has done, if it's not a good thing, you know.
The evidence. That's it. You're sorry.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that you are a bad person. So you don't have to judge the person. So, like, for example, we've all done things that are wrong. We've all made mistakes, but that doesn't mean we're bad people. So it's very important to differentiate that if you're talking to your partner, and instead of saying, you know, oh, you're stupid or you're mean or you're horrible or you're this or you're the other, say, okay, what you did wasn't that nice. There's a big separation between those two, you know, and that's important to keep in mind. And even with ourselves, to say that instead of saying, oh, I'm so stupid or I'm hopeless or I'm useless because you did something. I mean, yesterday I was coaching somebody and this person said to me that, oh, I'm no good when I'm no good. And I'm just what she said, basically I'm no good at something like that. And I said, why? And she said, because she was saying that she didn't have time for work because her kids were sick. So I said, so because your kids are sick and you're taking your time to concentrate and focus on your kids, you are hopeless. You are, you know, she was making these big grandiose statements. So it's important to put it in proportion that what, you know, I am, we know, are the two most powerful words that we say. Yes. What comes after it, right? So instead of saying I am no good, I am hopeless, I am a waste of space, all these kind of things we say, we might put it in perspective and say, well, okay, at the moment I haven't done this great because la 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 la, but it's a behavior, it's not who we are. So there's a big differentiation.
And I think a lot of people who are coming up to retirement or are finding that their jobs suddenly disappear define themselves based on the job. And you kind of go, no, that's not who you are. You're somebody much richer than just that one little label, which is why I'm not an editor and why Garvin is not an accountant. We're not any of those things. That's just a small little aspect of our lives.
No, I'm having the opposite problem, George. I've been going, I am great, I am beautiful, I am gorgeous, I'm gorgeous, Garvin, and everyone loves me. I don't interact with them to find out the answer, to find out the opposite. As I have that aura about myself. I'm great. But I mean, the problem is the unrealistic expectations, as no one knows, no one is affirming the fact, no one is in agreement, no one cares, but I have no problem, because it's my universe and all that matters is me, because if I'm not here, the rest is irrelevant.
Well, that's good. I mean, it's fine if we're saying I'm
not that bad. I'm only making that up. Maybe.
I remember as a 7-year-old, we used to have these conversations with the kids in the rest of the playground, and we were philosophizing more than anything else. And we're going to go, do you think that when that person goes around the corner, they actually just switch off and life goes? And that sounds like Garvin's world. He's still a 7-year-old. Oh my goodness.
I think
And he stopped. He stopped.
I
He
call
stopped
that the Peter Pan syndrome. I'm the boy that never grew up. Now, maybe Danielle's Tinkerbell. I'm not too sure. That could be another one of our superpowers. We need to be the Peter Pan and Tinkerbell, to have that adventurism, to have that wistfulness, to have that freedom to, not care and be playful. Because if that's gone, then everything else was work. And that's the thing. The work was only ever to get to the other, I think.
I think that's right. Yeah. Unfortunately, we've actually reached the end of the show. It's actually been a really in-depth conversation that we've had, and I've kind of liked it. We've gone into a little bit about hypnosis and how NLP is actually connected to it. But I think what we've got into is this real sense of how, when we get down to it, all human beings have a sort of the chitter-chatter box inside that tends to be very negative towards them and tends to put them off things. And whenever we say don't do something, we tend to do it all the time. But when we can switch that off, and I love the fact that Danielle was talking about her courses tend to be 8 hours long, 8 days long, or whatever, or 7 days long. And by the end of it, you get exhausted, so that your trying switches off. And you are so exhausted, and that's the moment when you start to pick things up, and the eureka moments actually start to happen. And because you're no longer fighting it, you start to absorb what's going on. And I think that's really, really good. And one of the lovely things I liked was the sense that if you can get to the point where you stop looking at the world and being cynical and start to see the best of everything, including Garvin, the best of his little world that he's in.
The beast and the beauty.
The beast that's in it. But that beast, that ugly little monster that's there, like the little leprechaun that we saw earlier on, is actually a person in need and has all these vulnerabilities. And usually when you show your vulnerabilities, other people want to come and help. There's an interesting thing. Other people want to come and help you make you feel better. So there's the way we connect.
Help me, help you.
That's it. That's the key thing. Well, normally I'd say, thank you very much, Danielle, for being with us. And I'd go on to Garvin. But today I'm going to go and say, Danielle, would you like a last little word before I pass on to Garvin?
Okay, last little word. I would say, well, that was a pleasure. That was lovely and very in-depth. And I think Garvin, in amongst all his messing and joking, has some very deep messages in there also, and if we were to take it that Garvin is like a 7-year-old, he's taken everything in we've said here like a sponge. People always say to me, oh, kids don't listen. How do we tell them? They're never paying attention. Talk to them anyway, because just like Garvin, even when you think they're not listening, they are taking everything in like a sponge. Okay, distraction is wonderful. It's a great deflection of the conscious mind. So we want to distract and deflect, so the key messages go in subconsciously. So think about how you can distract and deflect like Garvin today, and get your key messages, your subliminal messages into somebody there for their
watch
benefit.
out for the pricing on NLP courses and the Black Belt Mastermind from Danielle Serpico, because her little trick there now is it's 8 days a week. I believe there's a song out there. 8 days a week I can charge you for. That's what you have to watch out for. It's the little trick of hypnotism, but I like it.
And Garvin, we have to, actually, the reality of the whole thing is that we need to be more like you, because you're the great master teacher that we should be following at the end of the day.
No, and I have to be more like you lot, which is very depressing. So, I mean...
No, I think we've come to the agreement that we need to be more like you. We need to be more childish. We need to let the inner child out and blossom in the world.
No, you need to be more like
chase
me.
After those.
Handsome, beautiful, bold. Sorry, what's that word? Audacity. Have the boldness to go out there and do what you need to do. Whatever the bears are doing in the woods. You can leave that out. But apart from that...
Look, thanks everybody for listening to the show. And we'll say bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All the best. Thanks a lot. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe and click on the bell for notifications.